Hey everyone, this is the Love of Cinema podcast. We like to talk movies. If you like to talk movies too, you come to the right place.
I used to be ecstatic every time I cut. So I cut Zoya's episodes and I cut most of Nitya's episodes. So all the setup episodes, about the first 4 are mine. And I remember, everyone being very, very detail oriented, because it's the setup episodes are where we set the tone for the show and for each character, because those characters will then, their stories will unravel as the show goes on. So these were extremely difficult episodes to cut and to keep a balance between all the characters. So you see, that's what I was trying to tell you. There is no one specific coming out.
Okay.
Like even today, I'm out here, but I live in a little village in Goa, right, where my neighbors and people don't necessarily know what the word gay means, or what my sexuality might really be. They know that I live with a man who's a very good friend of mine, right? So that's another whole coming out. So that's exactly what I'm trying to explain, that coming out is a lifelong process. The first time you come out is you come out to yourself, you acknowledge it. Then you come out to your inner coterie, your closest friends, then you come out to your family, then you come out maybe to colleagues, then you come out, publicly. So you reach a place where, as society evolves, you are able to share with them your truth and your reality.
Welcome back, folks. Welcome to episode 5 of Love of Cinema podcast. This is Himanshu, and on this episode, we'll be bringing you the second and concluding part of my conversation with writer and editor Apurva Asrani. But before that, just a couple of quick notes. First things first. Thank you very much for making the last episode, episode 4, our most downloaded episode so far. I'd like to thank everyone who shared and recommended our podcast. I really appreciate it. I've tried to thank everyone personally who shared their feedback and commented. In case I missed replying to anyone, which I don't believe I did, but nonetheless, if I did, my apologies. Your feedback and support is much, much appreciated. With that, let's get on with this week's episode. On last week's episode, we heard Apurva share his journey from Satya to ALIGARH. Picking up from where we left off in last episode, starting with Simran. Asrani had intentioned Simran to be a dark comedy about a young flawed woman, almost an anti-heroine, if you will. Along the way, somewhere, it transformed into something different altogether. We'll hear more about that from him. We also chatted about Made in Heaven and how it broke new ground on a number of fronts. He also shared his thoughts on coming out and how it's an ongoing process as the society evolves. He also touched on why it's important for influential, closeted names to come out. Lastly, I simply could not wrap up our chat without asking him about a music video from 2000s, which he directed and you might have heard about. Here's a hint. That music video introduced Nimrat Kaur to us, the lovely actress from The Lunchbox. There's a very interesting story behind that video. I think you will like listening to it. Here's the second and concluding part of my conversation with Apurva Asrani. Now let's move on to Simran. And I know you have already spoken a lot about the controversy related to the writing credits and everything, so I don't want to get into that. But I wanted to hear from you, your version of the film, or how different was it, or what kind of differences were there? So I wanted to get a feel for, quickly, if you could kind of summarize what was the story that you had written. So because that character is just brilliant, and I can imagine that there must be a great story woven around that character. And the film that we saw was great, but you could tell that it was kind of a little half, it was half baked at the end of the day. So to be honest, and I thought that perhaps that was not your vision. You had written something else. So could you tell us what was the crux of your version?
It's so difficult to separate, because I mean, when you look at the film, you're watching a scene, and that's a character you wrote, and that's a choice that she's making. But then she goes and does something completely different that is not part of the character. So it's all mixed there to be able to separate it. But if I were to
Mm,
pinpoint a vision and I point out the fundamental difference between the two versions, the version that
mm,
one dreamed of or visualized and wrote, and what we saw on screen, was I wrote a film about a really flawed character. I again, like, with Aligarh, I had been tired of the whole stereotyping of gay men, right? And I wanted to break that. With Simran, I was tired of the stereotyping of the Indian heroine. For some reason, we always want to write our heroines, or we've wanted to see our heroines in the mold of Sati Savitri, Sita, pure, sacrificing, kind, benevolent, generous, right?
yeah,
And
very idealistic and very
very
kind
idealistic,
of,
and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
where it comes from, Mata, and she's a goddess, and all of that, and I really feel, Himanshu, that a lot of crimes against women, and a big reason
That's a
why
good point. Yeah,
are
yeah.
treated so badly in society is because if they don't fit that projection that
Suddenly
we
you're a
men
bad
have
woman. Yeah,
created of her, those
yeah.
images that we men have painted of her, right? Of her being this particular kind of a, pure and pious goddess, then we drop her to the ground and we character assassinate her. Then she is worthless. Then she's a criminal. Then she's evil. If she smokes, if she drinks, if she has sex. I mean, I know these are superficial things, but I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So I was just like, why is it okay for us to accept our men being dark characters? Oh, he played the anti-hero, and oh, he was wonderful. Shah Rukh Khan made a career of playing the anti-hero, right? But how many women can you count who have become huge stars playing the anti-heroine? There's very few. Your examples are Mother India and films like that, you know, of no, and that's a huge tragedy for society. It's a huge
Yeah.
tragedy. So in Simran, I thought there was the opportunity to write a character who fucked up, big time, right? And she fucked up because she was ambitious. She was trying to get out of where she was, and she found this magical world in Vegas where she could gamble, where she could make money, where she could buy clothes, where she could get attention from people. Uh, and she started to enjoy it. And there's no crime there yet. But then when she starts to lose money, her ego and her greed gets the bigger of her, and she thinks that she did it before, she can do it again,
Right.
right? And then she goes on borrowing money, trying to win big, and she ends up losing everything, right? Now she owes money to the mob, and there is absolutely no way she, in her capacity, she can return that money, right? And they put a gun to her head. So she decides, to rob banks. Now, how do you rob banks in the US? If you look at most of the bank robberies that have occurred there, these are not bank robberies that uh, taken place with major planning and colluding with the different forces, and it's not an Ocean's 11 and that kind of
Right.
a.
Right. Most of them are like amateur crimes.
They're very amateur crimes, right? You have a lot of drive through banks, where the tellers, inside the banks hardly get any footfalls. There are banks which uh, are very easy. They hardly got anybody inside of them, right? Because people are using the drive-through tellers. They're driving through, so you can go in and you can kind of
Pretty easy targets, yeah.
pretty easy targets. Plus, they, you know the law there. If I mean, what the banks, they have a policy that if they fear a robbery or an armed attack, right, they are instructed to just give everything, because they've done the calculation, they've done the math. It's better that we lose this amount than to have an injury, a gunshot, or a gun wound, or a death.
Absolutely. The liability is much bigger.
The liability is much more. So
Right.
a lot of crimes are committed by a mere passing of a note saying that, either I have a gun or I have a bomb and give me the money, right? So so this girl is committing these crimes. Now, of course, in my script, I mean, it's not as easy as you just walking into any bank and doing boom and getting the money. There is a certain kind of a research. Which are the banks that don't have much footfall? Which are the banks on highways and far away from the city and that kind of a thing? What time is the guard on duty? What time is the guard changed? So there's various things that has gone into the research. The problem with the difference, I won't get into negatives. The difference in the version that you see and in the version that was written is that in the film version that we saw, they tried to make Simran a hero. They tried to make Simran someone who was almost glorified, who was it was so enjoyable that it was almost fun. Her robberies, her you know, a bank teller getting a heart attack while she's robbing a bank, and all of these things. You try to make this comedy.
So that kind of takes away from the flawed aspect of the
That
character.
is the
That
thought.
was the very crux that you had
Yeah, and
imagined.
you're also sermonizing to your lover about why you're doing this and about how you're doing this for a certain cause and a reason, and you're trapped and you want to get out. There's too much self-awareness
Right, right.
in this version. But the Simran that I wrote was a much younger character, younger in her mind, younger in her, far more immature, right? Somebody who didn't stop to think, somebody who was just, catapulted from one to the other, right? And at no point was I trying to evoke sympathy for her. Poor thing, she's going through this, and if you feel it, if you look at her age and if you see her circumstances and you feel like she fucked up and then she realizes that she fucked up, I think that was enough, right? I think the problem was in when we saw this heroine on screen, this beautiful, well spoken, talented, loving girl, but who did all of these things. And I think those two stood in absolute conflict with each other. I think the story that I wrote was a far grittier, far more. It was enjoyable in its own way because it was never a heavy story. But her journey was a journey of a girl who screwed up and paid the price and never meant to be a heroine. And according to me, and I'm too attached to the film to ever really have the most correct perspective. But I think this is the big difference between the two versions.
Hmm. Yeah, so they practically made a regular comedy from a dark comedy, right? I mean, it's almost like a laugh out loud comedy from a dark comedy. I'm
I think
guessing.
they're trying to make a commercial film. I think they try to say that, you know what, let's go out there and make another Queen, right? And I loved Queen. Queen was an extremely enjoyable film, and I think
Awesome film, yeah.
she's a very talented actor. There's no question that everybody knows that. So,
Yes.
but this story, you have to look at the DNA of a story, right? Does the DNA of the story support, a hugely mounted, big budget commercial film? Is it going to find the Queen audience? The Queen story in its DNA only evoked sympathy for Rani. Her groom left her just before her wedding, and she had to go on a honeymoon on her own, right? Now she's trying to pick up the pieces and find her confidence and trying to live life in the DNA of the story itself. it lends itself to a popular, warm, fuzzy, feel-good film. Where when you take the story of Simran, which is actually based on true incidents, and you try and make it that film, make it a queen, I think you are doing injustice to your source material, and I think that's what ultimately showed.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm just imagining the film that it could have been, and because the character is so brilliant, and like you said, Kangana is a solid actor, but I think they just lost the whole plot, the whole idea of
Yeah, I
the
mean
very DNA of the film, like you
it's an
said.
experiment gone wrong. I mean, it's
Yeah,
at the end of the
it's a
day.
missed opportunity. Yeah,
Yeah,
big time.
if things weren't handled in the messy manner that they were handled, I think one would even forgive this kind of a experiment because that's what cinema is. You hit some, I mean you miss some, right? But
Right.
what in the tradition of the films that we were doing, there was Shahid, there was City Lights, there was Aligarh, and then there was Simran. If the film had continued in this tradition, right, then I feel like it would have been a far more honest film.
Well, let's talk about Made in Heaven now. Now, I understand that you were an editor on this, but were you also a consultant on the writing part?
No, I wasn't. I was,
Okay. Okay.
what
But
Philip?
this is a great show, by the way. And I think we all agree that this is a show that's going to be remembered in the years to come for its realistic depiction of urban gay life. And what do you think about that? I mean, I as a straight man can only imagine, but do you think they did a good job of showing urban gay life?
Oh my God. And how? I mean, and
Yeah.
how every time, it's right from the time when I was given the script to read and Zoya asked me for my feedback. I mean, this is the first thing that I said. I said thank you to her. I said thank you
Right.
to you and to your writers, to Alamkrita, to Rima, to all of you, for getting it so right. This is my life.
Right.
These are my challenges. This is the language I speak. This is how I date. This is my sexual life. This is my fear of my neighbors. This is my fear of getting caught. Uh, this is me fearing that my work will get affected if my sexuality is exposed. Uh, and just little things. The friends, the gay friends, the gay bar, the conversation about 377 that Karan is having earlier on with the Spanish guy that he goes out on a date with, and he's very like, you know what, it's all good. We've learned to deal with it. It really doesn't affect us, and we carry on with our lives. And this is exactly what I was saying, right? Till it really hits you in the bum,
Right. Right.
and hard, and you don't know what hit you, and then suddenly you realize, how fucked up this whole thing is. So Made in Heaven, I mean, um, and one of the reasons, and Zoya told me this, they wanted me on the show is because I had done Aligarh, and they had loved Aligarh. And if you notice, the issue in Made in Heaven is not so unlike what Professor Siras went through in Aligarh. He was a closet.
Absolutely. It's just a different setting, but the
He
same
was
same
a
problems.
gay
Yeah.
man, yeah, who is in the privacy of his house, has been invaded while he's having an intimate moment with another man, and somebody has video recorded this, and has exposed him, and the man is harangued by the law, and he fights it, and he emerges victorious. Uh, but Zoya's take, and Rima's take, and Alankita's take was a far more was taking it ahead, taking it a step ahead, where Karan is able to pick up the pieces and he has a support structure around him, uh, you know, and in his best friend. Uh, and I thought that relationship was so bang on, because uh, the every gay man behind every gay man is a fag hag. Like behind every successful gay man is a good fag hag, and it's true. There is always a woman, uh, a best friend, who is your bouncing board, somebody who you share your innermost feelings with, somebody you
You're
can put.
confident, yeah.
You're confident, you can, but the relationship is so beautiful because you can hold each other and hug each other, and you can put your head on her bosom, and it's not sexual, and it's so pure, and it's just love. And they got that so well. I mean, I just, those scenes between the two of them, I just cried.
Yeah, they did a great job. This show really reminded me of Parting Glances. I'm sure you have seen that film.
No, I haven't.
It's a small indie film that came out in 1986, and it's one of Steve Buscemi's early films. But that film is known essentially for breaking ground about the anguish of the AIDS epidemic in the gay community during the 80s in the U.S.
Hmm.
And I thought this show does something very similar. I mean, it's not about the AIDS epidemic, but what it does is that it presents the anguish of the social stigma, perhaps, as part of the larger social fabric, of the larger social Indian fabric. And I thought it was very similar in that sense to Parting Glances.
Yeah, I must catch it.
Yeah, definitely watch it. It's a great film. It's a small film. It might be difficult to seek out, but definitely seek it out. It's a great film.
Yeah, I mean, and so much more than just, Karan's character and the gay character. I mean, I thought the women in particular were presented and narrated in a manner that we haven't seen before in
Yes.
popular media.
Yes.
They weren't empowered for the sake of it. They weren't doing all the superficial uh, uh, empowerment gags and tricks and stuff like that. Their need to be sexually satisfied, their need to.
And they're real women, right? I mean, that's what like real people.
Yeah, they're real people and they're flawed. That's again, that's taking that whole, what I wanted to do with Simran, is what they have done so well with these women. They're all flawed. Even Jazz, that girl, as well-meaning and as innocent as she might be, and she screws up over and over again. Every single character in Made
Yes.
in Heaven.
I think there was a great angle with Karan's parents as well. That was very nicely done too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they flipped that whole stereotype of the father being the one
Yeah.
who can't relate to. And in fact, they flipped a lot of stereotypes. I used to be ecstatic every time I cut. So I cut Zoya's episodes and I cut most of Nitya's episodes. So all the setup episodes, about the first four, are mine. And I remember, everyone being very, very detail oriented, because it's the setup episodes are where we set the tone for the show and for each character, because those characters will then, their stories will unravel as the show goes on. So these were extremely difficult episodes to cut and to keep a balance between all the characters. And I remember particularly the scenes with what's the the neighbor's character, the landlord's character.
Vinay Apte, right?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Vinay Pathak. Yeah.
yeah. So Vinay Pathak's character, and I remember that the tone that we found in those scenes, the humor. Uh, and the warmth of the piece, covering up the actual darkness that lurks behind that character and what's
That
going
character, right? Yeah.
And I found that was actually the tone for the entire series, because that's actually what's going. You have all these weddings, these glitzy, over the top, feel good weddings, but lurking behind these weddings is the actual darkness of the human mind and of misused traditions and all these fuck ups.
Right.
So
I mean, it's beautifully titled as well. I mean, it's a cynical, kind of ironical title that Made in Heaven. So it's
yeah,
that's there too.
all that glitters is not gold. I mean, that's the thought.
Yes. Vinay Pathak's character was great, I must say that, and he did a stellar job, like always. He's just a solid actor, and even the dynamic between his wife and him, it was just nicely shown.
Yeah. Very nicely done. Very, very nicely done. And I like the way characters are almost redeemed but not redeemed. Uh,
Right.
yeah. I mean, they show you that each character is rounded out, and each character at the end of the day is basically saying that, hey, listen, I'm sorry, I'm just human. He's not saying I did this because of that, and therefore I need to be redeemed. It just tells you that this is human nature. Uh,
Yep. And redemption is hard to come by.
Redemption is hard to come by. Yeah.
And lastly, Apurva, I wanted to touch upon your role as I know you have been a longtime crusader for LGBTQ rights, and also and pretty early openly gay member of the film fraternity. Do you mind if I ask you when was it exactly that you self-disclosed your sexuality?
There's no one closet that one needs to come out of. There are several
Right.
closets, you know. So right from the time when I was, I don't know, in
Because
my
I read somewhere, maybe you had tweeted about it, that you blogged about it some while back, right?
what was it? Sorry, I don't.
I thought I saw one of your tweets where you said that, one day you just had it and you blogged about it, or, essentially you put it out in the public domain.
So I put it out on the public domain when I was live on television with Barkha Dutt in 2016 when I was there with the ALIGARH team.
Oh,
And
wow. So that was the very first time, huh?
yeah, it was publicly. But when I myself have said it in 2010, when I was on the news bulletin where Professor Siras had died, a newscaster outed me without my permission. And I think the intention was very clean. She just assumed that I was already publicly out because I'm out. I was out to my friends, to my family, and also to my fraternity to a great extent, the people I worked with. I had it over years. I had started to bring my partner out, and, bring him to events and things like that. So you see, that's what I was trying to tell you. There is no one specific coming out.
Okay.
Like even today, I'm out publicly. I'm out here, but I live in a little village in Goa, right? Where my neighbors and people don't necessarily know what the word gay means, or what my sexuality might really be. They know that I live with a man who's a very good friend of mine, right? So that's another whole coming out. So that's exactly what I'm trying to explain. That coming out is a lifelong process. The first time
Mm,
you come out is you come out to yourself, you acknowledge it. Then you come out to
sure.
your inner coterie, your closest friends, then you come out to your family, then you come out maybe to colleagues, then you come out, publicly. So you reach a place where as society evolves, you are able to share with them your truth and your reality. So by the time I was, so when I wrote Aligarh, and there I was talking about Aligarh and talking about what the story meant to me. There was no way that I could talk about it as as an assumed straight man. That would just be dishonest because Aligarh had become far more than a film for most of us and for me especially. It was finally what I wanted to say to the world, and it was an attempt to communicate with society at large, you know, that you are being ignorant, you are being hateful, you are being cruel, right? And I couldn't separate my personal voice from the voice of the film when I talked about it. And I think at that point in time, I think 3 years ago is when I actually came out publicly. And it's still, let me tell you, Himanshu, that there are probably three people in the film industry who are out, three men. I know there's Onir, there's me, and I'm trying to think about who the other film person is. Do you know any other out gay?
Is this is this somebody that I would know? I mean, is this
I
like
don't know. I keep feeling there is somebody, but I'm not sure if uh
see, that's my whole thing, right? My next question to you was going to be, it means a lot for an influential voice like yours to openly disclose, right? And I mean, God knows there are so many people in Bollywood or in any walk of life, right? And what would it take for some other big names in Bollywood to follow suit, Because we got to think like, what kind of a watershed moment that might be, especially for young gay folk, who really look up to influential voices and they're like literally struggling. I mean, they're in those prisons that we have been talking about.
Yep, it's crucial that well-known personalities, people with clout, people with power start coming out. It's happening in
Right.
other industries. The head of the industry.
And I get the feeling that it's some sort of an open secret, but still, it's not self-disclosed.
I think talking about closets, I think there are a lot of filmmakers who are out of, like I told you, some closets, but not
Right,
out of
right.
the
Like you
large.
said, it's a process. You need to
It's a
keep on
process.
coming. Yeah.
But Bollywood as an industry itself protects its own and protects its secrets. So people within the fraternity will know who is gay and who is sleeping with whom, and all of these things. But not only will they not disclose it out of respect and uh, you know uh, association with that person, but they will also uh, ostracize anybody who attempts to not only challenge somebody else's sexuality, which a lot of people try and do, like provoke people to come out, but they will actually ostracize people who themselves are out there and who wear their sexuality on their sleeve, who talk about it. There
What,
is a
what do you mean? Why is that?
there's a fear of association. There's a fear of association. There's a fear that because this person is living his life truthfully, that my truth will also be out there along with his truth. Say, for example, there is a filmmaker who is closeted and gay and is a friend of mine, but he will not be seen hanging out with me or associated closely with me for fear of the fact that he will also be seen as gay, and there will be speculation about his own sexuality because of the fact that I am out there and I'm gay. They also keep trying to tell us. So I'm in touch with a lot of uh, gay men. There are so many gay men in this film industry, and I'm in touch with them for many years. Uh, uh, and they know I know, and I know. I mean, of course, they know about me. Uh, and I keep getting advice from them from time to time. Why do you have to talk about it? Why do you have to? Why do you have to let it be your identity? Why is it anybody else's business what you do? Go do it in the privacy of. I keep getting this, this advice from them, as if I'm out there exposing myself for no reason and putting myself. It's not easy to expose yourself like this, Himanshu. It's very
Right, right.
you're vulnerable. You're vulnerable to so many unseen forces, you know, and people are very quick to judge you and slot you, and stereotype you, and it can get very uncomfortable. Like I was called. There's a friend I used to hang out with many years ago, and she had a housewarming party, and she called me and my partner to a housewarming party, and we were mingling with her friends, and I overheard her telling one of her friends, this is Apurva Asrani, and this is his partner, and they are gays. They are gays, huh? So it was almost like we were ticking a box. You know, we were ticking a box. Yeah,
Mhm.
see how cool I am. I have filmmaker friends. I have these friends. I have someone who's, like in America, it would be somebody who's black, somebody who's this, and here's somebody who's gay and he's on my friends list. So it's
All the
very.
while their true self being really regressive and
Yeah, I mean, and you end up being this cardboard character that's just floating around in the eyes of people, ticking a box, So I understand that it comes with its share of, stress and heartbreak and all of those things. But it is extremely liberating for your own self, number one. It is something that definitely affects your art. It brings an authenticity to your art and your craft, you know. And because if you're constantly lying about yourself and you're building up this facade and painting this picture, then your art will also be that kind of art. You're going to be painting fantasies and fantasy pictures, which are trying to evade the truth as opposed to come close to it.
It's going to be fake, right?
It's going to be fake, you know. And then also there's the additional uh, benefit of you coming out and leading by example, by affecting young people, like you said, who are people are killing themselves as we speak. They're being forced into marriages. They're being forcibly converted. They're trying to convert them to be gay.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to get to. I mean, that the kind
They,
of
they would
help that this would be for those young folk.
Yeah, and which is one of the reasons I am so proud to be associated with Made in Heaven as well. It's not that I'm a writer of the show or I'm one of the creators of the show. Just by association of me being an out gay man, and me being attached to this show, you know, within the whole community, it means something when they reach out to me, and they thank me, and I take thanks and I keep telling them this is created by these people, these wonderful women. But I take those thanks from them and I talk to them about it because that's what happened after Aligarh as well. After Aligarh, my inbox has been flooded, whether it is my Instagram, whether it is my email, whether it is my Facebook, whether it is my Twitter, because people will only have these conversations in inboxes and not publicly, telling me about how difficult it is with their parents, what they're going through, how they're dying to come out, but they fear that this will kill their parents and they don't want to be responsible for the death of their parents. We're very dramatic people, Indian people. Parents do full drama, and we know this. So they will live a lie because of that, and they don't know who to talk to. So when they find someone like me out there, and when they find that I've done an Aligarh, I've done a Made in Heaven, they are grateful, they are happy, they are celebrating, they are jubilant because they are able to share these films and this series with their family. They're able to watch it with them. The parents are able to see that these are not some freaks of nature, right? That they're being awarded respect in our popular culture, right? That these characters have stories. So, and that's me. I'm an editor and a writer of offbeat cinema. There's only that far my reach is, my popularity is. Can you imagine a big filmmaker, a big actor, a big producer coming out and saying that this is me, you know, and I'm here and I'm living my life openly so that you can, you know, talk to your I'm here in Goa. I have a friend who's a well-known designer named Wendell Rodrigues. Wendell
Hmm.
is a Padma Shri, and Wendell
Yes,
Rodrigues
yes.
is an
I've
out gay man who's lived with his partner Jerome for 36 years. They're married. They live their lives openly. There was a friend of ours, a common friend, a 30-year-old Catholic boy who was really afraid to come out to his mother because his mother is a very God-fearing person. And he was so afraid. One day over carom board and vodka, Wendell and I told him, that this is the most, we talked to him, we gave him the whole talk and encouraged him to come out and said that we'll be there for you. And Wendell said to him, he said, Dear, does your mother know who I am? She says, Of course, everybody in Goa knows who you are. Everybody knows who you are. She says, Tell your mother that Wendell will come and talk to you, that Wendell will come and explain to you how normal it is. Just tell your mother that Wendell is your friend. Within 3 days, he came out to his mother and he told his mother exactly this, that, Wendell wants to come and meet you and whatever. She said, Wendell will come to our house. He'll come to our house. Are you sure? Are you
right.
serious? Right? Now, can you imagine how many lives this man, by being out, is being able to affect and liberate? He's taking the gift of fame and the gift of success. These are gifts. Everybody does not get them. Some people inherit them because their fathers had it and whatever. You have this gift in your hand, right? You have the ability to be able to touch and change lives, but you don't use it. But you use it for yourself just for your selfish need, and to compound these stupid ideas and these regressive ideas that just fit into the whole popular idiom. And you make your money and you make your millions and you go and make your next film. That's unfair. And I really hope and pray that over the next few years, that filmmakers, that famous people find the courage, like Radhika Piramal of VIP Industries has done, like Keshav Suri of Lalit Group of Hotels has done. There are so many people from other industries who are doing it.
Right, right.
I really think.
Yeah. I think Bollywood is definitely lagging behind here because um, uh, God knows, I mean, they're big names. It's pretty much an open secret, but we can't judge either. I mean, I can't sit here and say that why are they not coming out? I mean, everybody has their own struggle and battles that they're fighting. So, but given the example that you just cited of, Wendell Rodriguez going to that kid's mother and talking, and she suddenly being fine with it. I can only imagine how many, young kids in India there must be, who would wish that, somebody would come talk to their parents like that.
Yep, true.
I can't let you go without talking about Tera Mera Pyar.
I'm so glad.
A song that is catchy as hell, and heck of a teen romance pop song. And I hate to admit it, but I still like it, and I still listen to it.
Why do you hate to admit it? It's such a pure, innocent piece of work in every way.
For somebody in his late 30s, still listening to that song, it's my, my wife is sometimes saying, yeah, it's okay to listen to it once in a while, but you really like it, don't you?
It's still popular. I keep hearing.
It's a great song, and it has a great guitar hook. Can you tell us the story behind that real quickly?
Well, I didn't make the song, nor did I play guitar. What do you want to know from me?
No, I mean, just I think that was Nimrat Kaur's debut as well, right?
Yeah, so I made the video. If
right.
You want to know about. So I made the video. It was for Sony.
Were you making music videos before that as well?
I directed television. We were at that where satellite television boomed, and we had all these one-offs, 1 hour stories, and horror was my genre. So I was making things for Sony and Sub TV called Cough, which were these 1 hour horror episodes that I used to write, produce, and direct. So I had this experience directing, and I always enjoyed it. And at Sony Music had why I don't remember. I think I had done something for a theatre production in London, which was a unique production where they had merged live action with pre-filmed pre-filmed sequences on a screen behind.
Interesting.
So like you have the reduced Shakespeare company where 6 actors play the entire cast.
Right.
Play.
Yes.
This was like the reduced Bollywood company where they did Hindi film spoof. They did a Hindi film spoof called Bollywood Yet Another Love Story, and which had all the tropes and all the stereotypes spoofed with affection. And so when the song sequences came up, suddenly on the screen behind lit up. And you had Film City sets, and you had 20 backing dancers in full saris and costumes dancing. And it was Instant Karma's music that we had got. That was Shankar Ahsan's Loy's Bollywood remixes. And I had directed and edited all of those. And that belonged to Sony, which was the label. So they had seen that, and they had approached me to direct the music videos for Tera Mera Pyar, this album by Partners in Rhyme that had done Chandni Raate and stuff before that. So there were 2 songs that they wanted me to make videos of. Tera Mera Pyar, the one that you were talking about, and the other one was Ye Kya Hua by Shreya Ghoshal. So I kind of worked out. I created a theme for these, because I found that they were filmy yet they were pop. So we had to embrace the whole filmy Bollywood aspect of it. Uh,
Sure.
so I came up with a theme called Romance at the Movies, which is basically about how in India you don't have space to romance. You live in apartments with your parents and you're not allowed to go out there and, romance your girlfriend. So where do you do it? You bunk college, you go to the theater and you hold hands and you kiss and you whisper sweet nothings while films play. Right. So
Right.
that's a tradition that's big. So I kind of, my theme was centered around that. So my first video was actually a tribute to my parents, because that's how they met. My parents met
Oh,
in
wow.
in
Okay.
in '76 in Bangalore when Sholay released. This is so filmy,
Yeah.
and
What a story. Yeah.
it's exactly the story of the video. My mom was a Bangalore girl who was there with her girlfriends to watch Sholay, and Sholay had become this humongous hit, and she was at the front of the ticket window. And my dad, who had gone to visit his brother, my dad's a Bombay boy, gone to visit his brother in Bangalore, had nothing to do and went to the cinema and realized there's this huge queue and he's not going to get a ticket, right? So he wanders asking people, and people are like, I'm getting a ticket or whatever. And he goes to the prettiest girl in that queue, who was my mom. My mom's still the prettiest girl in any queue. And he went up to my mom and he asked her if she will buy an extra ticket for him. And my mom, being as gracious as she always is, she said yes. And they ended up sitting next to each other. And my mom's a South Indian girl who could not understand Hindi very well. And so my dad ended up translating a lot of the film to her. And when Amitabh died, my mother cried and consoled her. And that was it. Yeah. And I
Oh,
was,
that's interesting. So it's a tribute to your parents' love story.
it's exactly that,
I
minus
didn't know that.
the popcorn was my addition. That's as original as I am. The throwing of the popcorn at the end of the video. Uh, Everything else is taken from real life.
That's great. What a great story. I'm glad I asked you that.
Thank you. And yeah, Nimrat
And
was
by the way, great iconic song. And like I said, I still listen to it, and it's. I mean, talk about a earworm, right? I mean, it just refuses to leave your head.
yeah, and Nimrat, we were very lucked out to find Nimrat actually, because a close friend of mine, a journalist at the time, introduced me. Rajiv Masan had introduced me to Nimrat, who hadn't done any work in Bombay. She just moved to Bombay, I think, or was moving to Bombay. I think she'd done an
I
ad.
see. I see.
She came on board and she had all the adas and all the nakras completely ready for a big screen heroine. And my mom did her hair and makeup. My mom's a stylist.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah.
There is a great story there, Apurva. You got to write a blog or something about this. I mean, now that we have this on the podcast.
This is out there. That's more than enough, I think. It's not like, rating it himself as opposed to writing it. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, right.
Mhm.
All right. Now, just a few miscellaneous hodgepodge questions I got for you. Any film show that you would like to recommend on the merits of how well it has been cut?
How well it has been cut. If anywhere in the world, any.
Anything, and rather more something recently that you would have watched,
Hmm.
which you
Yeah.
admired as an editor, in the capacity of editor, you really thought that it was a, brilliant job or a great job.
Whenever I'm asked favorite film, favorite this film, that, I completely blank out.
Okay,
I
that's fine.
The moment I disconnect your call, there'll be 30 that will just suddenly.
Even if you can think of a classic film, like from something from the past.
Well, films that have been an inspiration to me, I will always remember. Like for example, there's a film called Reincarnation of Peter Proud, um,
Yes,
which I thought was exceptionally cut, very evocative. Um,
yes.
I loved that film. I thought Kubrick cut his films very well.
Oh, absolutely, master. Just yeah, absolutely.
Shining, though it doesn't, draw attention to its edit, I thought was masterfully cut. Um,
Yes.
um, Kurosawa was wonderful. Throne of Blood is a brilliantly cut film. Uh,
Something closer to home in Hindi or any of the regional languages? Anything you can think of?
I'm getting there. I was about to go to Ray and tell you about
Oh, I'm sorry.
Gopiga and Bagabayan. Yeah, Bagabayan. I can't pronounce it. Gopiga and Bagabayan. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So that was a brilliantly cut film. I thought LSD, Dibakar Banerjee's film, was wonderfully cut.
Who cut that? Do you remember?
Namrata Rao
Okay.
cut that. Then there was I like Andhadhun. I thought was nicely cut.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, in fact, Andhadhun also very interesting. He collaborates with Pooja Lada Shurti, who is his editor and his writer.
Co-writer, right.
Correct. Yeah. So I find that most of the films, I think she gets it so right on the editing table because I think she's also worked on the script, right?
Yes.
Opportunity
That's a very special thing. Like, I mean, you on ALIGARH or like Pooja, I think that really lends itself a different angle to it, to the narrative and to the flow.
Yeah. I thought Tumbad was beautifully cut.
Tumbad was tremendous. I love that film.
But wonderful film. I think one of my favorites.
Absolutely.
In the longest time. Beautifully cut. And what else has been out recently?
Any shows? Any streaming shows? Any television shows?
Mindhunter is a great edit.
Oh, Mindhunter was good. Yeah.
Very nicely. Very smooth. With Fincher, right? So
yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Well, that's as far as my mind will go right now.
A piece of advice you would give to a younger Apurva Asrani?
To a younger Apurva Asrani?
Let's say 18-year-old Apurva Asrani.
I am still 18 years old in my head, yeah.
So what's the piece of advice you would give to yourself today?
Grow up, Apurva. No, what advice would I give an 18-year-old Apurva? Don't look for validation outside of yourself. Just keep doing what you love.
That's great advice, yeah.
May or may not get it.
You're young, you're always looking for validation, yeah.
Not just we are very older also you're looking. All of us
That's true, yeah.
For validation.
Absolutely.
So many times, like for example, Himanshu, Tera Mera Pyar, I'm getting more love for it today than I got for it in 2005 or 2006.
Right.
Nobody knew I did it. Nobody knew I did it then. Nobody knows about my work on the show studio project, editing fashion, which I thought was wonderful. So I used to it used to pain me in those days,
right.
That it's not getting the love and response that. But eventually, things always find their place.
I think so, yeah. And now, especially with the web and every social media, I mean, it's just a matter of time. If there is good work out there, it's going to be discovered.
Yeah. That's the advice. Yeah, just
great. And lastly, a piece of advice for an upcoming editor.
Oh, I hate giving advice to other people.
Something that you have learned over the years.
I think an editor needs to be able to put his or her foot down, not be afraid to
stand their ground,
to follow one's instincts and to fight for it. It's very, very important because otherwise you end up being a cutter and joiner. And a lot of filmmakers are very attached to what they originally dreamed or believed to be the film. And very often the rushes don't really support that, but they can't see it yet. Your edit will be able to give it a spin and to narrate it and find new angles to it and new layers, discover new layers. And you should have the confidence to do that and to make your case and to argue your case. But ultimately, it's the director's film, and but you must make your case and not end up being a cutter and joiner.
Right. Great. So you got to stand your ground and you got to be stubborn sometimes.
Yep, you got it.
That was great, Apurva. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for talking to us, and thanks a lot for opening up your heart on a lot of issues that we covered on. So I really appreciate that.
You're most welcome. Lovely talking to you, Himanshu.
That was the concluding part of my chat with Apurva Asrani. Like I said before, Satya and ALIGARH are two of my favorites. It was great chatting with someone who's been closely associated with both those films. Hope you liked it. Next week, I'll be bringing you another interesting chat. Don't forget to tune in again next week. Our podcast is now available on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. Please do subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to them. Also, do drop us a review when you get a minute. You can follow me on Twitter at loveofcinemasf8 for podcast-related updates. See you next week, folks. This is Himanshu, and thank you for listening to the Love of Cinema podcast.